Have the regulations really changed things for Formula One in 2022? 2022 saw one of the biggest shakeups when it comes to F1 racing. Prior to this, we've seen pure domination from the Mercedes team as they've managed to win 8 straight Constructors and 7 straight Drivers' Championships from 2014 to 2021. Nevertheless, it seems like the rules in 2022 that were initially brought to bring racing closer are working wonders, at least to some extent. But did they really change things when it comes to the boring dominance of a couple of teams, or did they just spice up the racing spirit in F1? This video is going to explain these questions and many more, so make sure not to go anywhere until the very end of it. When it became evident that racing is very uniform and just 3 teams are dominating at the top, with Mercedes being nowhere near catchable, the FIA stepped up and introduced some huge changes for the 2022 season and beyond. These regulations will remain the same until 2026, with some minor twitches to the diffuser, floor edges and raising of the floors in order to battle the porpoising phenomenon that came with the same regulations. But what was the main goal of the 2022 rules? First, the cars were made narrower and heavier, which means that dirty air won't bother the following cars behind. Prior to this season, when a car was following a driver ahead, the dirty air influenced a lot on the engine temperature, and the following cars were forced to give up on the chasing process that wasn't lasting long anyways. This has brought much closer racing, especially in the midfield. Now we're seeing cars being followed much more compared to the 2021 or 2020 season, and tyres aren't suffering so much from tyre degradation in this process, which is all enabling us to see cars like Williams, Alfa Romeo and Haas being much more competitive in the first half of the 2022 season compared to the whole 2021 season. Another thing that changed things in F1 is how the downforce is created on the car. Prior to the 2022 season, downforce was initially created through the rear and front wings, and now the ground effect floor has seen its comeback on the scene. This means that the cars are using the ground to generate downforce, something that also brought back a phenomenon known as porpoising. This happens when the air pressure below the car stalls so much that the car starts to lose and then gain a massive amount of downforce, and on the track that is visible with the car bouncing, usually on the main straights or the high corner speed. This is what changed things the most. The team that has struggled the most with this issue is Mercedes, and they were complaining so much that the governing body had to intervene and introduce some rules regarding the floor flexibility and the plank wear. However, that didn't help them as much, and just because of this issue, Mercedes aren't in the championship fight, as Red Bull was able to produce machinery that isn't bouncing at all and has destroyed its competition. Wheel covers and over-wheel winglets have also been introduced, with the former making a comeback and the latter being introduced for the first time. The introduction of wheel covers is with a very simple purpose, and that is to send airflow through the wheels in order to increase its downforce, but to also add to the chaotic aerodynamic wake coming off the cars. The over-wheel winglets have a purpose to help control the wake coming off the front tires and direct it away from the rear wing, which was a role traditionally performed by vortices from the front wing. As we mentioned earlier in this video, there has been the introduction of newer 18-inch tires compared to the old 13-inch tires. This is one of the primary aspects that is bringing racing much closer, and as we've seen throughout the season, the tires are truly specific, and sometimes the hard compound tires have proven the better and faster choice compared to the soft compound tire, which wasn't the case in the past. Changes to the front wing and nose concept have been implemented, and the new front wing's job is to both generate consistent downforce when running closely behind another car and to ensure that the front wheel wake is well controlled and directed down the car in the least disruptive way. The rear wing now features new roll tips that are making the rear wings direct airflow upwards. However, 2021 rear wings were also designed to send flow outwards, leaving the dirty air sitting there for the following car to drive through, which isn't the case with the 2022 rear wings. By its unique shape and position, the rear wing creates a rotational airflow that collects the rear wheel rake and rolls it into the flow, exiting the diffuser, which forms an invisible mushroom-shaped wake. On top of this, there have been changes to the budget cap. F1 is a sport that started to become more and more business-like, with rich teams harvesting the crops while the midfield and poor teams were left to collect the scrubs of the leftovers. However, firstly introduced in 2021, resulting in $145 million and then being reduced in 2022 to $140 million, the budget cap isn't allowing the teams to spend more than that money in order to keep the financial fair play equal to all teams. This means that the team that has the most intelligence will win, rather than the one that has the most money. This is why we've seen some innovative designs, like the one on Red Bull's floor and ice skates, which helped them fight the porpoising without any issue. 2022 saw some massive issues with the engines of the cars, more precisely with the reliability of the Ferrari issues, which is why the team was forced to spend most of the money on building and repairing the engines, or the parts that just failed due to the new technology. And one of the biggest changes that were implemented in 2022 is the introduction of more sustainable fuel, as 2022 saw the implementation of the E10 fuel, meaning that 10% of it will be fully sustainable. E stands for ethanol, and 10 is the percentage in the mixture of fuel, and prior to the 2022 season, the percentage of sustainable biocomponents was 5.75%. The FIA is looking to move to 100% sustainable fuel from 2026, along with bigger electrification. So, what are the results? Unfortunately, we have been stripped away from a close two-team fight in the championship between Ferrari and Red Bull, mostly due to the fact that Ferrari struggled a lot with the reliability of its engine. On top of that, Mercedes just wasn't able to pick up where they left off in 2021, and the maximum they can get is P2 in both championships in the remainder of the races. Nevertheless, we've seen teams like Haas and Alfa Romeo leveling their game and scoring some decent points. On top of that, this is the first time in 3 years that all of the teams have scored points, which is truly showing us that the midfield has been compacted and everybody can score points. If there has been a change in the top performing teams, that surely has to be in the financial spending. Now that the teams don't have a blanco check to sign when it comes to financial burdens, they have to think twice about whether they'll implement an upgrade or when they'll do it due to tactical reasons. Due to the inflation raising over 3% on the global level, teams were granted $4 million in cash for logistic reasons, but Red Bull used 50% of this money to develop a lighter monocoque, which is crucial if they want to be near the limit of a minimum weight of 792 kilograms. In retrospect, the 2022 rules did change the outcome of the racing, but they did it more indirectly with the reliability issues and the financial burdens rather than everything else. Nevertheless, we've seen some close and intense racing in the 2022 season, and in 2023 it's likely that it will be brought even closer, since there won't be engine developments due to the engine freeze taking place until the beginning of the 2026 season. What do you think about the 2022 regulations? Do you think that they served their purpose in the sport? Let us know in the comments below.